Vocal production is hard, so let's make it easy. How's it going? My name is Trev Barnes. I'm a guy that makes music on the internet, and I want to help you make better music as well. So why is vocal production hard in the first place? I've been making music for quite a long time, and seeing the progression in recording technology has been insane. The bar of entry is so low now because of how good virtual instruments sound. But the one thing that I feel like has always been consistent, no matter how much technology is getting better, is how hard getting a good vocal production is. And the reason that it's so hard, at least in my experience, is because of the unlimited variables that come with recording. I should have grabbed a microphone. Hold on. This is my go-to microphone. It is the Audio-Technica AT2020. It is a super cheap microphone that you can get to this day for $99, I think. There are so many different variables that go into vocal production. For example, I am in a non-acoustic treated room that will be changing here soon, but there's a lot of sound reflection in here. Literally, how far back I hold this microphone from my face determines how the microphone sounds. However, it is tilted up, down, left, and right. All of those are different variables, which causes this microphone to have a built-in EQ that is pretty hard to manage. Before we start, I want to point out that yes, I'm going to get comments on this video about people saying, oh, you're not doing that the right way, or you should do this or this instead. Those people are 100% right. Everybody has their own way of doing something. This is just the way that I prefer to do vocals, and I think it's a pretty simple way to do vocals. And this is kind of like the step to advanced techniques. This is pretty basic stuff that we're going to cover here. So in my mind, to get good vocals, we only really need three things. That is a good source, meaning a good vocal performance to begin with, proper mic placement, proper leveling. We need the right plugins, which is definitely far fewer than you think that you need for your vocals. And then lastly, we need space. I'll be a little more ambiguous about that. You'll have to watch the video to understand what I mean by space. Oh, and a fourth thing. Holy shit, there's a fourth thing. Fourth thing, but put this like up there at number one. We need a reference track. Reference tracks are the direct way how we know where we want our vocal production to go and what we want it to sound like. So definitely always start with a reference in mind because it'll be your guiding light. All right, so let's go ahead and start with a good source. So like I said, my room acoustics suck. Obviously, you do not need a perfect room to record vocals. Like, you shouldn't have to wait to do something until something is right. Otherwise, you're never really going to do it. So work with what you have. And the first way that we can work with what we have is to just go around the room, find the spot that has the least amount of reflections, the least amount of echo, or even do makeshift acoustic treatment. All right, this could be a whole other video. I won't spend too much time on it, but just know, yes, your room is important, but what is more important is the fact that you capture the idea that you are working on, okay? All right, so the very first thing that I want to do is set my levels. I think this is often overlooked, but I tend to keep things a little more on the quieter side, all right? Because the more you turn up a gain, the more room noise that you're bringing in. So let's go ahead and set the levels. And the way that I'm going to set the levels is just by talking through it, seeing what signal that I get. Check 1, 2, hey, hey, hey. All right, so right here, my voice feels pretty full through the microphone, but of course, as you can hear, there's a lot of room noise. So let's go ahead and turn that down just a little bit. And the next thing that I'm going to do is just sing the line of the song. And I'm just going to look at what my audio waves look like, because this will tell me if I'm too loud, if I need to bring it up, if I need to pull it down. Let's just see. My head is up in the clouds and it's not coming down. It's not coming down. So right there is about good, okay? It's low enough to where I can bring it up, and it's high enough to where I can definitely work with the signal and I don't have to overwork like a compressor or a gain plugin or anything like that. Now, the next thing to consider about a microphone, again, is gonna be your placement. I know I'm just holding this here, probably not the best example of performance, that's totally okay. But I want you to listen very carefully what this microphone sounds like as I move it away from my voice. You start to hear more of the room, you lose some of the low end, and then as I bring it back toward my voice, what do we hear? We hear less of the room, we hear more of me, and we also hear low end, and we hear fullness. Like I said at the beginning of this video, the microphone has a built-in EQ. It's called placement. So if I move this microphone off center, that sounds completely different than if I have it face on. So the best thing that you can do in this stage when you're setting up your microphone is just to get in there and test. But taking 5 extra minutes and really hearing what different mic placement sounds like for this vocal, that is going to be a huge help in the long run. All right, so the song that we're looking at is from a video I posted about a month ago. It's kind of like a modern pop punk alternative type song. And let's go ahead and make a new track, remove all of these effects on here. All right, so this is the dry vocal take.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
All right, so it's an okay vocal performance, not my best, all right? I recorded this with the Audio-Technica AT2020, and we're gonna use the fewest amount of plugins to get the best possible result. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is usually going to be EQ. And I don't want to go crazy with the EQ itself. I want to paint in broad strokes. There's a lot of other tutorials out there that will show you all these super nifty surgical EQ tricks. That's not what we're doing at all here. The first thing that I'm going to do is mute this vocal, and I'm going to listen to the instrumental and find what tone and what frequency range is missing so I can fit this vocal in there. So let's listen to the track. So everything's sitting kind of in the mid to mid-low range. There's not really a lot of mid-high and high frequencies going on other than the snare, a little bit of the kick drum, and then some of the background synths that's like fading in and out. Now let's listen to this vocal and see how it stacks up and how it compares to the rest of the song.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
So from what I noticed of this, the notes that are higher come through a lot better than the notes that are lower. And yes, part of it is because of level, but it also has to do with the frequency. So what happens if I just come in here with an EQ and I start taking out the lows? I want to listen closely to the characteristics. And again, this is what this is going to be based around. It's not about the technicals. I don't give a shit about any of these numbers on the screen. I care about what I hear, and you should care about what you hear. That's why it's best to have a reference. Base this off of the context of the song, not other principles that we've seen. So let's just start taking out this low end and see where it feels a little more comfortable sitting along with the track.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
So this is way too far. All right, I've completely thinned out the vocal. Let's just bring it back slightly.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
Maybe a little more. Listen without.
Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe
With.
some vitamin D.
So that feels so much cleaner now. I think there's a little bit of mid-frequency disruption. Again, everything is living down in the mid-range, and I'm wanting this vocal to be brighter. But to get something to be brighter, it's not always about adding more EQ to something. Many times to get something brighter, it's about carving sound out of it. So again, I want to be super general. I'm not trying to be surgical with this at all. And then let's do a little frequency sweep and see where there are painful mid frequencies that I'm trying to find. Again, I'm not using the graph. I'm not going by numbers. I'm listening to my track specifically.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
Right there, maybe?
Maybe I need some more.
Yeah, it's right there. And what I'm listening for is just that boxiness. Something I want you to practice in your own time is having your own definitions of familiarity for terms in audio production. You'll go to different tutorials. People will say muddy, they'll say too bright, they'll say harsh, they'll say all these different things. And a beginner approaching this, it may feel overwhelming because there's not a Webster's dictionary for what muddy means. I mean, it's in the dictionary, but not the way we use it. So in the beginning, when you're familiarizing yourself with how things sound, come up with terms on your own. Literally take a piece of paper, write down what something sounds like to you in your own words. After you have your own familiarity that means something to you, once you hear other YouTube tutorial people or whoever you decide to listen to talk about muddy or boomy or any of these other terms, you'll be able to go, oh, that same sound is what I have written down here. That's how you make the connection. So that's how you start to understand terms that producers and musicians like to make up all the time. So let's just go ahead and carve out this frequency here. And again, I don't want to go super drastic, just very, very broad strokes.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds. not coming down.
So yeah, I think just a little bit of that carving made a pretty big difference to me. If you don't hear that much of a difference, I totally understand. It's mainly with the words that feel closer. So not so much the na-na-na-na, more so the na-na-ha-ha. Do you like that? Do you like the little way I identify that? Let's go ahead and listen to these vocals without any EQ, and then we're going to turn the EQ on.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
Okay, so that's without. Now with.
Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe some vitamin D, maybe some therapy.
So these vocals feel a lot clearer. Me personally, I feel like I have enough high-end representation, but let's just see what happens if we add a little more highs to it.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down. Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe some vitamin D, maybe some therapy.
And then one other trick that I do just as a safety measure is I'll put a high cut around 18K. Usually this isn't enough of a difference to hear it, but once we start dealing with more dynamics, this range can get really, really harsh. But just as a safety to catch any harsher bright frequencies, I just put a smaller high cut on there. And this is what it sounds like off
My head is spinning around, living up
and on.
in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
So you can hardly hear it. I hear just a little bit of smoothing with it. But yeah, like I said, this is just kind of a safety here. And then all of the EQ off sounds like this.
My head is spinning around, living up in
And
the
with.
clouds, and it's not coming down. Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe some vitamin D.
So next I'm going to use a compressor. And look, compressors can be super, super overwhelming. All right. There's a lot of knobs. It's hard to hear for compression. So just think of this more as a signal regulator. As you can see, I have a lot of loud signal here and I have quieter signal here. I personally, in this stage, don't want to overcompress my vocals and I don't want to slam them super hard. I just want to get them to a place of consistency. And I also want the dynamics to still continue to breathe. All right, I don't want to completely brick wall and flatline this whole entire signal because I think that kind of makes for boring production sometimes. I think some of my favorite songs to listen to, they get louder, they get softer, and I feel like they move. So for this compressor, first thing that I want to do before I do any settings is just see where my input gain and my output gain are. I want to make sure that there's plenty of signal coming through this compressor to begin with. That way I don't have to pull down my threshold like all the way and make this compressor work twice as hard if my signal was too low. So let's just see where it is.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds.
So I think that there's plenty of signal there, but if my signal was too low, then what you should do is bring up your input gain. And whatever I bring this input gain up by, I want to bring my output gain down by. So if I add 7 dBs of gain, then on my output, I want to remove 7 dBs of gain. Now, like I said, I want to gently control the dynamics of this performance. So I'm not wanting my ratio or the aggressiveness of this compressor to be high. I like to stick around 2:1. And 2:1, essentially what this means, for every 2 decibels that pop out over my ratio, it will reduce the gain by 1. So the higher I have this, that means the more gain reduction that will be done. And then we have the attack and release, which this is usually confusing. This will take some time for you to get used to and practice on your own, but usually for quicker vocals, something in this regard, I will have like a semi-fast attack because I have very choppy vocals. So I want the compressor to definitely catch on to those choppy vocals. And then I will have a semi-fast release as well, because there's not really a lot of longer notes that I'm holding out that I need that compressor to hold on to. So I want this compressor to have essentially enough time to grab onto the next word. So now the next thing we're gonna do, let's just go ahead and bring back the threshold.
My head is spinning around, living up in the
And don't forget, you need to turn on the compressor for it to work.
maybe I need some more sleep, maybe some vitamin D, maybe some therapy.
So to me, that performance feels a lot more level. And just to show you what the compressed vocal looks like, let's go ahead and bounce this in place. But look at the dynamics. There's still a lot of movement to this whole performance, but look at how crazy the dynamics were here. And they're much more tamed and even with still preserving some of the movement to the performance, right? And let's just listen to this without the compressor, and then we'll listen to it with. So first without.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
And then with.
Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe some vitamin D, maybe some therapy.
Oh my God, I forgot to put a noise gate on. All right, one other plugin I totally didn't even think about. Just put a noise gate on almost everything, all right? Because listen to all this in between crap. God, ugh, all just mouth noises, so freaking gross. From here, we can add another EQ where we can make our surgical choices. I'm not going to do that because the vocal performance sounds pretty darn good to me. But I am going to add a de-esser now. And for this, I really don't want to be overly aggressive because I think that de-essers that are pushed too hard can really ruin a performance. So I just want to focus on where I have the most amount of sibilance, which is going to be within here. And I'm just going to isolate this and listen to it on its own so I can really find where the harshest sibilance is happening. And when I'm listening to this, all it is, I'm just listening to what hurts the most.
Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe some vitamin D. Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe some vitamin.
Right there, around like 11K. And this is like a compressor just for specific frequencies. So let's start to bring it back.
Vitamin D. Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe some vitamin D. Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe some vitamin D.
And then let's listen to it off.
Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe some vitamin D. Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe
Yeah, that might be the wrong frequency. Let's actually go lower with it.
some vitamin D. Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe some vitamin D.
So yeah, that sounds pretty good. If I go any further with the threshold, it's just gonna make my vocals sound weird. Actually, why don't I show you?
Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe some vitamin D. Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe
Doesn't that
some
sound great?
vitamin D. Maybe I need some
Just subtle. All right, and then I'm going to add one more compressor. And this compressor is not going to be a regulator. This is gonna be my attitude compressor now. And this is where I can kind of have a little more fun and just get it a little more aggressive to match the attitude of this performance. Because right now, if I listen to the vocal alongside the music,
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
it sounds good and it sounds clear, but it doesn't feel the right appropriate context for the track. The track is very aggressive and this vocal does not feel cohesive with it. So I just need to match the energy. That is all. Let's go ahead and bring this ratio up to like 4:1. Again, that's usually going to be like the standard that you see people compress vocals at.
My head is spinning
And now let's dial it back.
living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
I'm going to bring up the vocals because there is some gain reduction that's a little more than I prefer.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
That sounds a lot better to me. So this vocal to me doesn't feel overcompressed, but it feels like it's gripping. It feels like it is cohesive with everything else that's going on in this track. And there is not a lot of plugins on here. There's an EQ, a compressor, a de-esser, and another compressor. By the way, if you are enjoying this breakdown, chances are you will probably enjoy my production bootcamp, where over 12 weeks, I basically want to change the way that you create into helping you make better music. So that way you can create more music, you can finish more music, and you'll become an overall more confident creator. This isn't just a course that I want you to take. This is full coaching and mentoring. I'll be working with you for 12 weeks, helping you develop your skills. So go check it out. Link is in the description. But let's go ahead and add the third ingredient here, which is going to be space. So right now, again, these vocals sound good, but they don't really feel like they're in the same space. We have all these different elements that have reverb, that have delay, that are taking up more space. I want this singular vocal to feel like it is more involved with the song. And the answer to that is going to be using delay and reverb. I am not going to put the delay directly on the track. Instead, I'm going to send this track to delay. And I do this because I want to have control over how much I'm sending to this delay And I'm going to put a tape delay on this. And I do a tape delay specifically. One, I have the power to stereo spread my tape delay. Many delays you can stereo spread, doesn't matter. But tape delay specifically has a really interesting character that as it continues to produce sound, there is continuous modulation and the sound degrades as it goes on. And to me, those little imperfections and those little quirks really helps shape the environment and really gives more of an enjoyable and creative listening environment. So I'm going to solo this out. Let's just hear what the stock sounds like.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
All right, so the first thing I want to focus on the EQ of this. So I'm going to unsolo it, I'm going to play it with the track, and I'm just going to start to shape the EQ to where it fits in with everything else. I basically want the frequencies of this delay to be the bridge between the music and my voice.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
So it's definitely under there, right? But it's not really filling up a space because our stereo spread is just right in the middle. What happens if we just start to spread it out a little bit?
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
Let's change up the cadence of this delay itself as well. I think the quarter note is too slow. Let's see what a quarter triplet sounds like.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
So that's interesting. It's a different cadence than everything else is going, but it definitely stands out a little too much. Just gonna bring the feedback down a little. I'm gonna change my tape head mode to diffuse. This is going to warm it up a little more. And it's also gonna start to really modulate the delays as they go on.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not.
I'm gonna go ahead and take all of the signal to the bus down, and I'm just gonna start to bring it up. And once I hear it, once it's like right there, I'm just gonna bring it down a little bit because I don't want this delay in this context to be noticeable. I want it to sound like a dry vocal. And interestingly enough, having this space here is gonna help it sound more like a dry vocal. It's a really weird effect. Let's go ahead and start bringing this up.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
All right, so I can hear it there. Let's bring it down a little.
Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe some vitamin D, maybe some therapy.
And what's interesting, if we solo out this vocal,
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
it sounds like a lot. Like it sounds like there's a lot of delay on there, but when we play it in the context with the song,
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
this is why I love sends over just putting it directly on the channel. There's so much of the dry signal that is preserved and it's blending with the delay and making more for of an environment versus just an effect on a vocal. All right, and then the last thing that we're gonna do another send, except this time we're gonna be sending it to a reverb. And for this, I'm just gonna use the Space Designer in Logic. And let's just hear what that sounds like on its own.
And it's not coming down. Maybe I need some more sleep.
All right, so it's leveled in there okay, but why does it still sound like it's not fitting in? Well, most don't know that you can EQ a reverb. I think the biggest reverb killer is within the high end. I think the shininess of a reverb is really, really unpleasant, especially in this scenario. So let's go ahead and just roll off the high end of this reverb and hear what that sounds like.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
So with the high end,
Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe
Down.
some vitamin D, maybe some therapy.
especially during the sibilances as well, that high reverb really emphasized the S sounds. Like just listen to this again.
Maybe I need some more sleep,
Ugh. Now listen to it with those highs rolled off.
maybe I need some more sleep, maybe some vitamin D.
Sounds much better. We can also get rid of a lot of the low end because you get a lot of these lower muddy frequencies just hanging out together in a cesspool of their own filth. Let's go ahead and remove that. What does this sound like now?
Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe some vitamin D, maybe some therapy.
It's a little harder to hear with the music, so let's just solo these out. And this is where you'll really hear the difference.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and
So that's
it's not
with the low end.
coming down.
And then without the low end,
Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe some vitamin D, maybe some therapy.
So to me, this sounds pretty good as is, but there's one more thing that I personally like to do with my reverbs, and that's add in a little mid-range. Not a lot of mid-range, just a little. And what I'm looking for is a certain area of the song that I think some mid-range is missing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and let it play and boost this mid-range and try to find a nice sweet spot. So that way it really thickens up the sound and finds the right harmonic space for this reverb to live in.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
Maybe there. Let's solo this out so we can really hear the sound of this mid-range.
My head is
So without,
spinning around, living up in
with,
the clouds, and it's not coming down.
just putting it one step closer to where it fits harmonically with everything else going on here. And let's just start to blend in this reverb.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not
All
coming
right, so too much,
down.
let's bring it back.
Maybe I need some more sleep, maybe some vitamin D, maybe some therapy.
That sounds pretty darn tootin' good to me. All right, so here is the total before.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
And then here is the total after.
My head is spinning around, living up in the clouds, and it's not coming down.
So I don't think that anything we did here is necessarily out of your reach. I mean, all the plugins that we have on this are very simple and very minimal. You see, what I have learned from working with students, working with enough students at this point, I mean, I've been mentoring others for 2 years now. And the one thing that I tend to notice is that we always tend to overcomplicate things that can be very, very simple. And we tend to look more at things than we do to listen to things. There are people who watch this video who are literally just gonna open up their DAW and copy the exact settings that I did without listening to what the song needs. And that's something that I think we tend to miss out on, is how to listen to something to determine what it needs. So my homework for you watching this is to develop a deep listening practice. And you may be hearing that, well, what the hell? What do I do with just listening to something? I'm gonna include in the description a deep listening prompt. So that way when you're listening to songs and you're listening to the vocals specifically, it's a list of questions that you can ask. That way you can start to become aware of deep listening and what to listen for. But if you enjoyed this breakdown, definitely subscribe. I'll be doing more educational breakdowns into production like this. So if you enjoyed this video, definitely subscribe to see more like this. Definitely let me know if this video helped you or if you have any questions. If you hated it, don't leave a comment. I don't want to see that. Bad comments ruin my day every time. And again, one more time, there's a link to the production bootcamp down in the description. I'm limiting the number of students that I accept. That way I can really give those who are in the focus and attention that they deserve. So spots will only be open for a limited time. But thank you so much again for watching. Stay inspired. Peace.